As a spooky special, today let's talk about dire wolves. As good as they were in life, they are in death. For the vampire counts an essential mobile pressure tool, first kind of hound type unit I've talked about. One of the big advantages of all hound type units is that they are basically light cavalry that aren't actually cavalry. Given that they count as infantry, they're not subject to anti-large bonus. They also have full-on 60 unit models, more than most light cavalry units, and because of that, they can occupy many unit models at the same time. Fast speed and vanguard means they can get into a specific position, especially to take out low-tier ranged units and enemy light cavalry. Just a very, very strong mobile tool, and essential for both, I say, dire wolves. Scurvy dogs can largely be seen as the same, more or less, just slightly cheaper and therefore more cost-effective, and probably even more essential for the coast than the dire wolves are for counts, but both are pretty essential for their factions, given that you can get kited as the vampire counts, and as vampire coast, it's kind of one of your only mobile units. But no fear of getting kited against Skaven, of course. This is a Legion up against Guac here. Guac playing the Skaven, getting some practice for the Everchosen. And Legion here, giving him a hard matchup. This is definitely, I would say, from my perspective, one of the Skaven's toughest matchups. Vampire counts definitely have a lot of great tools here, but let's see what he's got. Besides the good boys out of the flanks, Varix Reavers, a Black Coach, a Vargulf, and a front line of zombies. We've got some Crypt Ghouls as well, some nice DPS against the low armor of the Skaven. And yeah, that's basically it. Speaking of Skaven, they've got Deathmaster Snitch leading the way, Plague Priest, a whole bunch of Skaven Slave Spears, yeah, Clan Rat Spears as well, 2 Warp Lightning Cannons, and some Poison Wind Globes, Kemmler and 2 White Kings leading the way for the Undead. And here it's going to be the Bats that rush in first. Bats I'll talk about separately, but they also count as infantry size, kind of a fast a unit. They're more meant for bogging things down. They don't really have an offensively focused profile like the Doggos do. Doggos, of course, 0 armor, only 19 defense, does mean they're very squishy, but we do have the Regiment of Renown on the field as well. The Dire Pack with their anti-large bonus going to be quite good against the low armor large units of the Skaven, like these 2 Hell Pits. No Rat Ogres to speak of, but they would be good against them, of course, as well. The higher armor Skaven large units like this Plague Priest here, like a Doomwheel, not quite so good against, but still pretty decent. Let's get in close as the Black Coach starts to run some disruption here, potentially getting a terror-causing side charge. The Crypt Ghouls also rushing in. They're going to do some decent DPS against the Hell Pit if they can get a hold of it. Just generally taking out a lot of this chaff infantry, they will do very quickly. Skaven are doing some nice DPS in return, though, especially as this Plague Priest gets involved in melee and starts to proc that Mortis effect. There's no Corpse Carts or Mortis Engines on the Vampire side, so they don't really have any passive healing outside of Kemmler's sword, which he does have, but not currently using. He does have to be in melee to use that, and considering Deathmaster Snitch is hanging around here, it's not going to be great. You can see the Hounds working in junction with the Black Coach here to try and proc some terror routes. That is quite a strong kind of combination there. They are able to get rid of, obviously, the low leadership. Clan Vulcan's Tail Slashers will be able to hold out a little bit better there, but Black Coach, if we take a look, I am planning a video about the Black Coach soon as well. Yeah, it's got some buffs already active, up to its first kind of layer of buffs there, but the Hell Pits are going to respond and try and take it out, understanding that it's a pretty big danger here. Varix Reavers also pulled up in the back line, haven't really done too much yet, but still looking to get involved, and very nicely done with these Dire Wolves, getting in here and sneaking in, getting on the Poison Wind Globes. That is another benefit of Hound units, is because their unit models are very small, and they have kind of these tiny hitboxes, they can path through many times and like kind of get back and like filter through almost like I don't know, I can't think of a good metaphor, but kind of like, you know, panning for gold, like they're like the dirt that sieves, that filters through the sieve or whatever. I don't know, you get what I'm saying. They're gonna kind of run through and just get on these artillery crews and other ranged units to make sure they stay bogged down, and that's where the higher model count comes into play versus other quote-unquote light cavalry units. They can actually be in contact with more unit models at a time, and therefore keep them from doing their jobs. And they are actually going to take out that artillery crew, of course. Even the tail slashers, you can see, taking some significant damage. The ghouls also contributing there as well, but especially on a charge with like several hound units in a big swarm, you'd be surprised how quickly they will just devour light, kind of low tier units. Varric's Reavers doing their best to try and stay alive. They do have some regeneration, which definitely helps, and I'm a big fan. Probably one of the more underrated regiments for now in the game. The Skaven having the Mortis effect and the lack of it for vampire counts could prove pretty decisive, especially given that Heinrich has not been able to stay in melee. But all the ranged units being gone is fantastic, and another huge benefit of all light cavalry units, but especially hounds, given that they do it extremely cost-effectively by and large, is of course chasing routing units, which they're going to do here. These poor Skaven clan rats can't run fast enough to get away from the good boys, and they are hungry. Ratty snack boys. Oh yeah, and you see how they kind of swarm through and continuously get at those unit models. That's what I'm talking about in terms of them having very small kind of hitboxes. Their hitboxes are probably as small as the clan rats, to be honest, and thus they can just swarm like crazy through here, and it means they're probably the best at chasing, especially like high model count light infantry, which is exactly what those Skaven clan rats are. Things are definitely looking pretty even still. This main blob fight, the Hell Pit Abomination was able to take out the Black Coach. The Hell Pit Abominations, even, you can see it's laying over there. A lot of the Skaven units are gone, but there's still plenty of summons to keep them sustained while this Mortis engine, Plague Priest, tries to do its work and just drain out the last of the infantry. The White Kings could be problems, though, given that they're on foot, not going to be subject to the anti-large bonus of those Hell Pit Abominations, and they don't have the best stats in the world. It looks like Krell has also been summoned here. His elite anti-large AP will be great against any of these targets, but especially the Plague Priest is the most ideal for him to go after, but looks like he's going to get a nice side charge in here. Krell's so cool. Oh, come on, do an animation, dude. There we go. It's a nice slap on the side of the Hell Pit there. Did a little bit of damage. Hell Pit's definitely regenerating quite nicely. You can see the doggos are coming back from the far side, having chased many units off. The dire wolves here completely healthy, one of those units at least. And yeah, we still got some more over here. The dire pack even coming back, and their anti-large bonus could be pretty good in this late game as they thin out the summons, and they're able to get more after. But you can see, oh man, Snitch is like running from Krell. That's pretty funny. And the hounds actually get in here and get a nice little kind of swarm on Snitch. Because of his lowish defensive stats, like he does have a bit of physical resistance, but because he can get surrounded by them pretty effectively and he definitely can't get away, they're going to be able to get some kind of incidental hits in here and just wear him away. Snitch doesn't have that much HP at the end of the day, so actually, as long as he doesn't have his Vortex active or available to use, rather, swarming him with the hounds there is maybe not the worst idea in the world, actually. Very cost-effective way to deal some damage to him. But he's going to move over, start to try and wreck some of these White Kings. Looks like Krell's also still in this pocket, though, so if he gets 3v1'd here, that's really bad. I mean, granted, he's not because the Hell Pit and the Plague Furnace are here, at least for the time being, but some more cycle charging from the doggos and from the dire packs. More summons being pulled up here. These clan rats might get swarmed by these various units. Kemmler also still quite healthy, which is pretty good. And another Scav's Wrath ripping through some of those summoned clan rats, but Hound Swarm definitely very real, and as a result, these, ooh man, a little bit of friendly fire on that Scav's Wrath too, but the clan rats really won't last long at all in terms of the summons, and even though the White Kings might die to Snitch, they'll fight him pretty cost-effectively given how cheap they are. But the Dire Pack in particular will be very important if Heinrich can keep them sustained. Is Heinrich actually in melee? It doesn't look like he is. We're still not getting the benefit of that sort of, what is it, Chaos Tomb Blade, that's right, that's the name of the item. This Deathmaster Sigil being popped here on the White King, and look at this, again, the Hounds can be used to chase this routing unit off. The Plague Priest very critically routes away here, and as a result won't be getting its Mortis effect to drain out what's left of the Vampire's support. And the key here in these kind of blob fights is whose support runs out first, not to mention, looks like Snitch and his Assassin Bro also get routed, and the Hounds can again be used to chase them off. Those direwolves have just been absolutely clutch here, and against the low leadership faction, obviously, like the Skaven, against pretty much all factions, I'll say this, that can rout, whether it's low leadership or high leadership, for different reasons, and also for the same reasons, it's important to chase routing units off the field, right? Like low leadership factions, big horde factions like this, they just have a lot of units, and you often need to equalize numbers very quickly. So having a cheap unit like this that can chase units off is just amazing. Kind of on the flip side, the higher leadership factions who may have lower model count, like elves, for example, it's almost equally as important just because it's harder to break their units, that you do also chase them off, and typically you do have the numbers to do so. But just in general, I would say having a cheap unit that can disrupt your opponent's formation, attack ranged units very cost effectively, kind of filter through, sneak into some positions, get good vanguards, chase routing units. There's just so much utility offered by the doggos, and they do it as well as the best light cavalry in the game, especially given their cost effectiveness. Here, the Dire Pack are actually doing a significant amount of anti-large damage to the Hell Pits here as they kind of cycle charge in and out. Their anti-large bonus is significant. It's not huge, I don't think, if I remember, but it is definitely there. It's, yeah, plus 14, actually, quite solid. Puts him up to 36 weapon strength, and, yeah, very good attack and other stats on the charge there. You do have the Undeath Resurgent to give him a bit more melee defense from Kemmler as they kind of fight in the late game here along with the White King, but it's pretty much just them, handful of summon zombies. Another doggo unit actually also rushes in here in the late game. Kemmler himself likewise comes in. We've got the Varix Reavers pulling up. But not looking great for the Hell Pits as their leadership could potentially give out here, but the nice thing about being undead is that I'm not going to say the Hounds are quite unbreakable. Their leadership is low enough that they can be disintegrated, but they're pretty close to unbreakable, being undead, and that has shown through in this game. They've been able to stick around here, and that's also credit to Legion's micro, kind of, you know, keeping them alive in the first place, and also using them as they chase routing units. They won't be taking much damage, obviously, so that's just fine, and they are going to actually wear down these Hell Pits over time here. No healing proc yet. And all the while, the swarm of the doggos, they still have enough unit models to pretty much get a full surround here. Maybe not quite, but it's enough that they can still deal a lot of kind of burst here, given the swarm and the surround. You see just those little chunks. They are little chunks, but there's a lot of little chunks coming out, and that means army losses. The Hell Pits can't stand up to it, and that's the end. Obviously, Kemmler and the White King, a big part of that as well, but look at those doggos, man. 153 kills, 149 XP chevrons to go around, 59 here, excellent stuff. 194 for the Feasters in the Dusk, and 116 for the Varix Reavers. I like this build quite a bit. I have to say, it's interesting not to see Blood Knights here, just because Blood Knights counter like 80% of Skaven's roster. But I definitely am a big fan of the Hound Swarm, and I do have one more replay from Legion to show you, kind of as a bonus. But yeah, great job to Guak too. It's a tough matchup. It's probably one of the toughest matchups for Skaven, and this kind of snitch double Hell Pit with the Furnace combo is quite strong, given that you can kind of fight monsters and try and grind out the melee fight. It's just tough because the vampires, even without passive healing, they can, in many aspects, just kind of outblob you, which is a little sad, but it is what it is. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the next replay without further ado. And as a bonus, we've got Tomb Kings. Yep, that's right, followers of Nagash. Many people forget the sub-faction can actually take Dire Wolves, the vampire Dire Wolves. Slightly more expensive, but they can take them along with some Hex Wraiths. A couple units from the Vampire Count's roster available for Ark in the Black for his sub-faction. We've also got Skeleton Warriors, Tomb Guards up front, some Carrions as well up against the Coast. Very appropriate in this matchup. This is sometimes a tough matchup for Tomb Kings, who are definitely the least offensive undead. You can see already the Hounds swarming in the back line. They take out one mortar. They just about take out another mortar here, doing some good damage to the handguns as well. We've got some zombie halberds, bombers, Noctilus up on his Necro leading the way. These Shade Wraith Gunners, and I know it's a very fast situation, so the Coast player here, not necessarily faulting him for this, but these Shade Wraith Gunners definitely want to be focused on shooting those Hex Wraiths, given they have magic damage. But yeah, just lots of zombies, basically what you would expect. Another regular deck gunner as well. They managed to mostly fight off the hounds over on this side, but the mortars are basically done for, so that's a decent amount of gold gone right off the bat, and the hound swarm comes in and just starts to eat through these handgunners, and the bombers and everything getting taken out by hex wraiths, so we'll get in close. Some nice cinematic angles of Noctilus trying to stabilize this situation here. Doggo's pulling up and away as the summon gets up. Pulled in and just sweeping around, trying to occupy those missile units again, whether they be the bombers, the handguns, whatever. Just making sure you keep them occupied, and the filter through, again, you can see how the hounds just get through. And look at the Shade Wraith Gunners, man. This is one reason why I say the Shade Wraith Gunners are one of the worst RORs in the game. Is they have such low HP that even non-magic damage units will deal effective damage to them. And I think they ate a Spirit Leech here as well, I want to say, from Arcan the Black, but they are just getting wrecked here because they have no HP. And although the hounds are mostly done for already, their disruption of that line meant that this Tomb King's front line was able to get in here, basically taking very little damage, and a lot of the ranged units for Coast are already very beat up, which is really not great. But you can see now skeletons and Tomb Guard and so on starting to filter through. Get in, the hounds and the carrion just about out of steam, but the hex wraiths are still here as well. Does the Realm of Souls actually heal the doggos? I think they might have all died already, so I can't check, but very fun stuff regardless. Looks like a Wind of Death here from Noctilus, and unfortunately just a little bit mistargeted, wasn't fully kind of connecting on that line there. But the deck gunners are mostly shut down already. Balance of power still very close, all things considered. Actually, enough Tomb King's models have died that the Ushabti summon has been pulled. They're not quite given an attack order yet, but I'm sure they'll get involved there soon, try and take out those handgunners. But one of the reasons that this matchup is tough is because Tomb Kings, you can't outshoot Coast. Like, there's just no way you can outshoot Vampire Coast. And as a result, like, your melee rush often gets picked apart by missiles kind of as you approach, but here, given the aggressive Vanguard potential of the hounds, and exactly like this, rushing in, immediately disrupting those missile units, allowing this front line to get in, taking a lot less damage, especially from the bombers, and obviously the handguns and mortars as well. But yeah, good stuff. Fate of Buna being used on deckhands. A little bit of a painful situation, but there's really no good unit to use it on here, to be honest. Maybe just save it for Spirit Leech spam, but as it is right now, pretty much all the zombie units are bogged down, and like even these skeleton spear boys will do just fine. So let's get in close, watch the Ushabti as they chop up these nasty zombies. The Tomb Guard also. Elite skeletons fighting the haggard zombies. Oh man. I'm a fan of the Tomb King's aesthetic, even though crumbling is a meme. Tomb Kings are definitely pretty cool, and I like Gunpowder as well. If I didn't hate their playstyle so much, I'd probably like them more as a faction. But Noctilus will continue to hold out for some time. Keep zooming around, but mostly, I mean, it's going to be a slow grind, a bone-on-flesh grind here. Just gross and disgusting undead for the rest of the battle. So we may end up fast-forwarding a little bit here, but we'll at least appreciate the aesthetics here for a little bit of time. It is October after all, spooky month, and I haven't decided yet, as the time of recording this, I'm considering doing a spooky tournament of some kind, like a kind of variation on my Land of the Living tournament, where we include undead on some level with some restrictions. I don't know, we'll have to kind of see. Regardless, another fun replay from Legion. He's going to start to pull ahead here, and we will indeed start to fast forward, as it is going to be Noctilus versus the world for a decent amount of time here, as, again, crumbling is a meme. And this is a pretty good demonstration why, is that, you know, a lot of undead lords, and heroes especially, have such high leadership that it's hard to make them even crumble in the first place, and it's functionally impossible to get them to disintegrate without army losses. Even with army losses, it can sometimes be hard to get them into disintegration, which is kind of ridiculous. They definitely need to increase the leadership penalty of army losses and also lower the threshold of disintegration, I think. That would help solve that issue somewhat. But that's a topic for another day. As it is right now, Noctilus is just going to keep fighting until the end of days here. You can see he's literally not even crumbling yet. It's kind of hilarious, given that he's the only one alive. His entire army's dead. He's completely surrounded by enemy troops. No hope whatsoever of victory. And he does have another summon there. But Arkan says, hey, hey, I have another summon too. So would you look at that? We're both evil undead baddies that are gross. And that's it. So fun stuff. Well played, Legion is Zack style there. Yeah, it's a nice kind of build from Legion there to counter Coast. Something that they might expect if you choose the followers of Nagash. I guess maybe that's why he brought the Shade Wraith Gunners to begin with, but definitely very aggressive and can still catch your opponent off guard in terms of positioning and getting a fast reaction. Just great stuff overall there. Good kills across the Hounds, and even though they didn't get XP chevrons, they allowed the rest of this army to get in here. Get some serious work done, especially like these Tomb Guard. 80 kills on skeletons as well. 85 is not bad at all. 78 for Arkan himself. Fun stuff. So yeah, big thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, all that jazz. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.